Data Shoka no Hitsuchikai, also known as A Good Librarian Like a Good Shepherd, is an anime about a shy, bookworm boy who finds friendship and romance through messages from a mysterious shepherd. The story starts with a Keikei and his book. Under a tree, a man narrates how he's never seen a boy read so intently before. A magic book with everything in this world written in it is mentioned. The man tells him that the book does, in fact, exist and that it is in a magic library. Keikei wants to go there, but the man tells him to be kind to everyone, in order to get there. Keikei doesn't understand what that means, but the man tells him he will, eventually, before giving him a ticket to the library and warning him not to lose it. Years later, as Keikei gets off the metro, we see Shirasaki trying to read a flyer, determined to change her useless self and be better. Keikei steps off the metro and sees Shirasaki trying to get people's attention and hand them flyers. While walking, Keikei receives a message from the shepherd telling him something will happen to him that day that will change his fate. Keikei has a vision of Shirasaki being run over by the metro and starts running, acting on his premonition. She runs to Shirasaki and tells her to run away, dragging her away before she understands what's going on. As they're trying to get away from the rails, though, Shirasaki trips, and both of them fall down. Keikei comes to his senses with a soft sensation in his hand. Realizing he's grabbing Shirasaki's water balloon, he jumps up, exclaiming "Gome!" Shirasaki gets up and runs away from Keikei, who is standing there like a common harasser. Before he can think about what happened, though, he turns around to see the metro crashing into where Shirasaki was, confirming his intuition. At school, Keikei reassures himself, thinking there's no way he'll see that girl again. But, of course, the second he turns his head, he sees Shirasaki, in the same class at Shiomi Academy. In the cafeteria, Takamine and Keikei meet Suzuki, the new addition to the academy. Later, Mochizuki, student council president, tries to convince Keikei to join the student council, so he wouldn't waste his talents. Keikei politely turns her down. Rereading the message from the shepherd, Keikei tells the story of the most famous rumor at the school. The shepherd, always somewhere at school but always unseen, only appearing to those that earnestly work hard and granting them wishes. Of course, upon reading the message, Keikei thinks it must be spam. As he's thinking this, Tamamo and her girls approach him and shows him the picture of him and Shirasaki from before, his hand on her water balloon. Tamamo is pissed off at Shirasaki for harassing her and asks him to apologize. But when Keikei tells her what really went down, with the premonition and his attempt to save her, Tamamo doesn't believe him and thinks this is only a lousy excuse, labeling him an enemy of women. Keikei runs away, but soon enough, the whole school starts whispering about a second-year guy who harasses girls. As he hides in the bathroom, he runs into Shirasaki again, and realizes her water balloons are touching his chest, not a sight that leaves much room for misunderstanding as Tamamo walks in and witnesses this. Shirasaki screams out, "It's my fault." And when Tamamo finally hears out the real story, she apologizes and Keikei decides to head back to the classroom, when a whole gang of feminist, fighting men advances on him. One of the men grabs Keikei, before Takamine air kicks the man and saves him. Before things are about to get violent, Shirasaki tells everyone Keikei isn't a harasser and there's been a misunderstanding, which cools off the tension. Later in the library, Keikei, Shirasaki, Tamamo and Takamine take their places around a table and meet Gizo, a camera-ready cat. As Keikei is reading, Shirasaki invites him to Shiomi Happy Projects, going against her introvert instincts. Overhearing this, however, Mochizuki tells her she can't let Keikei join an activity like that, as he's rejected her offers to join the student council. As Tamamo and Shirasaki argue with Mochizuki, Keikei contemplates if any of these activities would be better for him than reading. However, he realizes Shirasaki must be acting on something other than emotions or words, and that something is beyond what he can understand right now. He decides he wants to understand, though, and so accepts to join the Shiomi Happy Projects. Tamamo and Takamine join in as well, and they make the library the headquarters of the club. At that moment, they all receive the same message from the shepherd, which goes, "The library club has made a decent start. Congratulations." As they discuss whether the shepherd might actually be real, Nagi, from the library staff barges in, asking them to keep it quiet. Sure of the fact that Shirasaki is somehow a key factor in understanding what he doesn't yet, he thinks hanging out with her could become a light to dispel the darkness for him. As Keikei walks out of school, we see a man and Nagi standing on the roof, as they reveal that Keikei has a lot potential and is one of the two shepherd candidates and Nagi herself being the other dash, and that he will soon take the test to see if he could be the next shepherd. Next day at the school, Shirasaki and Keikei meet at the library club. Inside, Keikiai is trying to read, despite Shirasaki's excessive questions and interruption. Finally, Keikiai closes the book as Shirasaki asks him to pick up trash with her. The club cleans up the school, trying to create an impressive track record so that the school might come to them to solve problems later. Their attempt of recruiting more people, however, isn't going very well. As Suzuki grabs a flyer from Keikiai, who she thinks is a hero, now that Mochizuki cleared up the misunderstanding on the web about Keikiai being a harasser. Suzuki then becomes the newest member of the club. Later, Keikiai helps a girl called Senri Misono pick up her coin from under the vending machine and Senri buys him a drink in return. After their cleaning activity, Tamamo shows the club the information she's found about the shepherd, although most of them look like rumor or urban legends. While talking, they realize they've all gotten the same message from the shepherd, again. As they're walking, Keikiai finds a tuning fork and the club bring it to the lost and found section, where they learn that is with Senri Misono, a famous singer and a promising new student at the academy, who owned the fork. Shirasaki decides to go to Misono's house to give the fork back to her and Keikiai follows her. On the street, they find Misono, who recognize Keikiai from before. They give her the fork and she is grateful for it, as it has sentimental value to her. Shirasaki hands her the flyer for their club, telling her they're doing volunteer work helping people out. The next day, Keikiai and Shirasaki meet at the library again, and Keikiai is impressed with Shirasaki's selflessness and kindness, and decides to trust her with the key to the library room. Later on, the club members get another message from the shepherd, saying Misono will teach them something important. This is even more interesting than the messages before, as Suzuki hasn't given anyone her new email address, so, Tamamo figures, someone must be watching them. Suzuki suggests they seek help from Urashino, the girl from the cafeteria, who knows a lot about computers and hacking. The groups decides to divide into two groups, one to investigate the sender of the emails and the other to talk to Senri Misono. Suzuki and Keikiai ask Urashino to help them figure out who the mysterious sender is, and Urashino accepts, for a price. She says if they hand out flyers for the Apollio Spring Fair, she would help the. Meanwhile, Tamamo, Shirasaki and Takamine find Misono and show him the email about her. Misono doesn't understand, but before she can engage further, she is summoned to a private musical practice. Back in the library, Shirasaki says she will contact Misono again later and Keikiai shares Urashino's condition for helping them. So, the group decides they need to wear extreme costumes in order to get attention for Urashino's flyers. Shirasaki offers to make a costume for Keikiai, and asks him to take off his shirt. Nagi, eavesdropping through the door, is mortified to hear the dialogue between the two, which sounds way more hot and steamy than it actually is. She convinces herself it couldn't be as indecent as it sounds, but as she barges in, she sees Keikiai, topless and Shirasaki kneeling in front of him. She bolts out of there as the group laughs. After school, Keikiai runs into Nagi at his apartment, where it turns out she lives as well. Having discovered they are next-door neighbors, they officially meet for the first time. The next day, Shirasaki shows everyone their costumes, pillows with different animals sewn on them. At home, Misono is out of breath and terribly sick, as she lies on the floor looking at her phone. Back in the library, Tamamo shows the group the club's new official public website. Right then, Shirasaki receives an email from Misono asking if she knows how to make porridge. Later, the girls go to Misono's house but let themselves in as they get worried when no one comes to the door. They find Misono on the floor, with a very high fever. Takamine and Keikiai pick up medicine for Misono and the club takes of Misono, who is down with a severe cold. As Shirasaki holds the unconscious Misono's hand, Misono hugs her still unconsciously and says, "Mom, don't go." This makes the club emotional and gets them even more motivated to take care of them. That morning, Keikiai wakes up to the ringing of the bell and finds Nagi upon opening the door. She asks if she can use his TV and lets herself in, immediately making herself at home. As Keikiai tries to ignore her and read, she asks if Shirasaki and him are dating. She tells them she doesn't care about them making out, but that they should do it in a more private place. This is when Keikiai tells her what they were actually doing that day in the library. Later, Misono tells the club she also received a message from the shepherd. Takamine points out that it looks like this shepherd is controlling them. When Urashino sends them the information of the sender of the emails, the club visits the address she's found. They find the door open, and as they peek inside, they see that the place is completely deserted. Even if no one lived there, Urashino has kept her end of the bargain, and now, the club has to put on their costumes and hand out the flyers. At the fair, the new girl is drawing a whole lot of attention from the boys with her cuteness, but the beautiful girl turns out to be Keikiai dressed in a maid's outfit. Misono enters the school and thanks Shirasaki for their help, and Shirasaki asks her if she could use her popularity to hand out flyers, but this makes Misono think the only reason they looked after her when she was sick was because she was the song princess, so she runs away. Keikiai witnesses this and goes after Misono. He explains her that the real reason Shirasaki helped her was only because she is a kind and good person. So Misono returns with Keikiai to Shirasaki, who apologizes to her for being insensitive, and so, Misono agrees to put on a costume and help with the flyers, which is a big hit among the students. The next day, Misono joins the library club after their invitation and Misono immediately adores Gizo, the cat with the pervert personality. When Nagi comes in to shush them yet again, and sees there is yet another member in the library club, Suzuki offers her a bathhouse experience to make up for the disturbance. So, the library club all goes to the bathtub. As the girls compare their water balloon sizes, the boys listen to them in the other room. The girls ask Nagi how she got to be so close to Keikiai. She casually reveals she's been in Keikiai's room, which sends the girls flying at her with jealousy, but finally tells them she's just his neighbor. Later that night, Shirasaki asks what Keikiai will do about his limited time with the library club coming to an end and tells him why she wanted to change who she was, in other words, the real reason she formed the library club. Shirasaki has a younger sister, Sayori, who's been sick in the hospital for a long time. When Sayori asked Shirasaki what it was like at Shiomi, Shirasaki told her how she had many friends, and how fun it was. So, she tells Keikiai she has lied to her sister and wants to make those things real, having friends and having fun. Keikiai hysterically laughs when Shirasaki tells him she's a horrible person because of this, for lying to her like that, and he tells her she's a nice person. Shirasaki says whatever Keikiai's answer will, she'll accept it. Upon arriving to the library club the next morning, the group surprises Keikiai with a surprise birthday cake and decorations. As they all sing happy birthday to him, he recalls the times he spent alone as a kid and starts appreciating the library club for what it is, a group of close friends who care about him. So he declares he will continue being a member of the club, because he wants to explore this feeling of being cared for. At night, Keikiai sends a message to the shepherd, asking how he could meet with him, and to his surprise, he replies, "Good luck on your next endeavor. When you find out who I am, come talk to me." It is now summertime at Shiomi Academy, and the library club is doing voluntary work in the pool. They are now very popular and the jobs are endless and exhausting. As the club gets more and more clients coming in and out of the library, Nagi informs them that they are being very distracting and that the head library worker wants them out of the room. The club convinces the library worker to give them another chance, and does extra work to get in her good graces. To reduce the noise, the club starts taking complaints and requests through email only, trying everything in their power to keep the library. Late at night, Keikiai and Tamamo are walking home, when Keikiai tells her she's doing way too much, she should rest a little bit. As it is pouring rain out there, the two get closer and cozier under the umbrella. In the metro, Tamamo falls asleep on Kaki's shoulder. The mysterious man on the roof appears again and tells Nagi that Keikiai has passed the preliminary test, and that Nagi should stop messing around with the emails. Nagi's just, as it turns out, was just to observe him, not mess around with them with emails, but still, she is not disqualified as a shepherd candidate. Next morning, Nagi comes into Keikiai's house again and asks if he can really see the future. He replies he's had premonitions since childhood, and tells her he always saw a magic book in a library after each one of his visions. As he looks her in the eyes, he has a vision of being trapped in an invisible box, which disappoints her. Outside, Nagi is surprised he could see it, and even more worried about her competence against Keikiai as the shepherd candidate. Keikiai, Suzuki and Misono are surprised to see that all three people who said they've seen the shepherd seem to have forgotten about it, as if their memories were erased. Keikiai runs after Nagi when he sees her at school, but Nagi avoids him and runs away. That night, Tamamo calls Keikiai from the school to see if he's free on Tuesday for an assignment, and Keikiai hears Nagi's voice from the phone. However, when he knocks on the wall immediately after this, he hears Nagi shouting "quiet." So, he gets really suspicious and goes over to her apartment. Nagi answers the door. He enters the house to find it empty, without any furniture. It is obvious she lied about living there. He also remembers how Shirasaki and the others didn't remember Nagi despite meeting her before. So he asks her if she is the shepherd. She reveals her identity and admits to being the shepherd, when the mysterious man suddenly appears and tells him he's passed the test. He congratulates Keikiai, and tells him it is time to go to the magic library. Keikiai recognizes the man to be the same man who gave him the ticket to the magic library 10 years ago. He introduces himself as Nanai, Nagi's supervisor and a shepherd. He tells him he wants Keiki to be one as well and opens a book, which transports them into an abstract place, the Magic Library, officially known as Library of Prayers. This library, Nanai explains, is like a dream world that lives in everyone's subconscious and their hearts, but only the shepherds can access it. In the books, the future of every single person in the world is written, and the shepherds are responsible for guiding them according to their futures. Keiki takes a book, but all he can see are unintelligible lines, and Nagi tells him only the shepherds can read them. When Nagi drops one of the books, Keiki catches is midair and the blood glows, taking him to a past memory, where he is looking for the magic book in a library. When his vision ends, Nanai tells him he's ready to read his own book. Nanai tells him Keiki has already been doing the work of a shepherd, since he saved Shirasaki from the metro based on his premonition. Nanai tells Keiki that Nagi is an intern shepherd and that he can be once as well if he passes the second test, which is when he'd be able to read and understand the books. Keiki asks him to give him some time and they are transported back to his room. Nagi tells him being a shepherd means you can't have friends, lovers, family, that you can't form any closeness with anyone because you needed to treat everyone equally as a shepherd. Keiki, however, isn't interested in making everyone else happy, his dream is to live a peaceful life alone. As Misono and Keiki are about to do something fun together, Nagi steals him away, sending the girls into a jealous rage. Nagi tells Keiki his target is Urashino and draws out her book. She prophesizes that although she has great potential, if she injures her left arm, as Nagi sees as one of the possibilities, would destroy her life and happiness because she won't be able to code and program as successfully anymore. So, she tells him, their job is to make sure she doesn't sustain that injury. To do just that, Nagi lowers a chair into the ground, which Urashino picks up and continues along her way. This is supposed to alter her fate and prevent her from hurting her hand. However, as Urashino walks along, Keiki receives a vision of her being badly wounded anyway. Nagi understands she's miscalculated her move, so Keiki runs after her screaming her name. She stops her at the last minute before the door closes and crushes her. Nagi's goal is to become a shepherd and leave this world, which hasn't been kind to her. But she is more and more concerned that she doesn't have what it takes to become one. Later Nagi informs the library club that they've been allowed to use the library room for their activities further. On another day in the library, the girls are discussing what kind of girls Keiki is into, when Takamine tells them he is already going out with Nagi, but the girls don't believe this. Shirasaki asks Keiki if he's free that Sunday and she asks him to meet with them. That Sunday, all the girls visit Keiki at his home to pick him up for their date. As Keiki has forgotten about the date and overslept, the girls let themselves in as he gets ready to go out. Nagi imposes herself upon them and meets them at the mall. As the other girls pick out clothes, Nagi questions Keiki about which girl he likes the most. Needless to say, he is enjoying all of their company and the girls are all crushing over him intensely. First, Keiki and Tamamo have a cute moment when Tamamo's overly detailed plan for the very casual day doesn't go well, and Keiki comes up with a solution that makes Tamamo appreciate him. The girls think Tamamo and Keiki might be a nice couple, but they look more like business partners than lovers. Then, they spend some time in the arcade, where Misono twists her ankle during a dancing battle with Nagi. As Keiki looks at her foot, Misono proposes they take a picture in the photo booth. In the booth, they share a moment of closeness. At the library, Suzuki finds Keiki with a dozen of books, and the two share their love for books and hobbies. As their shopping date is about to end, Nagi tells Keiki it is time to do some shepherd business now. She tells him Shirasaki's fate is about to change soon, that Shirasaki will meet someone who will fall in love with her at first sight and admit his feelings. But then she will reject her, but as he doesn't give up trying, at last, she makes a life-size doll of herself to give to the man, Tsugumi number 18, the name with which Shirasaki will go down in history. However, Keiki needs to stop this from happening, because the doll they are talking about here is not used for the most innocent thing, and surely, Shirasaki wouldn't want to be remembered though that. So, Nagi whispers Keiki the plan and he starts walking towards Shirasaki. He walks up to her and says, "You look beautiful today, honey," and asks her to hold him tighter as he hugs her. Shirasaki is absolutely shaken up, but Keiki doesn't stop there, because he sees that the man who is supposed to fall in love with her is staring at them. She holds Shirasaki and kisses her, as he hurries along. Finally, he gets the thumbs up from Nagi and lets go of Shirasaki, still smitten and dizzy, only to find the girls impatiently waiting for an explanation. Later, Nagi tells them a phony excuse, that Keiki and her planned this together because they thought the girls were hiding something from them. Although it doesn't make much sense how the two things are even remotely relevant, Shirasaki reveals that they had, in fact, been hiding something, that they wanted to know what kind of girls Keiki were into. That's why, it turns out, the girls have been taking turns having moments with Keiki to figure out who he liked better. More importantly, the group seems to all have lost their memories about ever having looked for the shepherd, or even receiving messages from him, everyone but him. They all seem to remember, when Keiki reminds them. But that's when he realizes, everyone will forget him once he's a shepherd. Nagi confirms this to be true and tells him the only people who don't have their own fate books are the shepherds, because shepherds extend the limits of being a human. She tells her this is the price he needs to pay to be a shepherd, but Keiki slowly realizes, he has grown too fond of the library club and doesn't want to sacrifice his friendship with them. Nagi, though, is willing to make that sacrifice, and so, Keiki understands, he will soon forget Nagi, when she becomes a shepherd. Overwhelmed by the feelings this realization hits her with, Nagi turns around, grabs Keiki and kisses him. Suzuki and Keiki are running lines for a theater play she's working on. Later, the library club performs on stage, where Keiki gets to have intimate moments with Misono and Tamamo in their bikinis. When Shirasaki accidentally trips over Keiki, he falls down, coincidentally grabbing Tamamo's bra, leaving her naked in front of the entire audience. After the play, Suzuki is sad that all they could offer the audience was laughter, because there were accidentally nudified girls on stage. But, Keiki convinces her it was fun after all and she didn't need to feel bad. As Tamamo is giving Suzuki a massage, she asks if Suzuki loves Keiki, and bombards her with questions. This leads to a heartwarming moment between the two, who both tell each other their love for one another. Another group, who wants to be on the main stage for the show, tells the library club that the student council doesn't want unacknowledged groups, like the library club themselves, to be on the main stage. Shirasaki doesn't accept this and rushes off to meet with the council, along with Keiki and Tamamo. Aoi, the council vice president, and Mochizuki tell them it is impossible to let them on stage, unless the library club consent to taking full responsibility of any accidents that may occur on stage, whatever that means. Mochizuki, however, is more moderate and tells Oi her behavior with the club was too harsh. Later on, the group decides to take action instead of waiting around for the council to make a decision. They decide to make a scene in the school, raising awareness about the small groups like themselves. With the heat of the moment, Suzuki gets excited and hugs the cat, forgetting about her allergy, which leaves rashes on her arms. After school, Keiki runs after her, asking her about her arms. She says they're fine, but Keiki believes she's being hard on herself, still overthinking about the theater play disaster that happened before. Suzuki can't convince him that she's not depressed, and runs off. Wanting to help Suzuki, Keiki considers what he could do if he becomes a shepherd to help Suzuki. Later he asks Shirasaki if she would want to read a book that has her future written in it. She replies no, she wouldn't want to know. And Keiki tells her he'll think of something to make Suzuki feel better, deciding to ask her to write another script. As Keiki and Nagi are on a stakeout mission, Keiki asks if she's sent an email to Tamamo as the shepherd, and she replies no, which is weird because Keiki has seen Tamamo's received email from the shepherd. At dawn, Keiki finds Suzuki on top of a hill, and she tells her about the new script she's writing. Keiki realizes the main character almost identical to Suzuki's life with the library club. Depressed with intense insecurity, Suzuki is sad because she couldn't make Keiki laugh, but he reconciles her and performs a cute little bit to make herself feel better. He hugs her tightly, and tells her he'll always be there for her. This boosts her confidence, as he announces the group the next day that she will write another script. Misono reassures her that she was being too hard on herself anyway and that there is no one in the library club that could hate her. When Misono's tutor comes in and tells her she needs to leave the library club immediately because she is falling behind on her practices, the happy atmosphere is ruined for the library club. Misono shuts the door to her face and ignores her. Tamamo tells her it's okay to practice more, they're okay, and she can concentrate on practicing her talents and not neglect her musical skills. Later, Nagi tells Keiki Misono is at a turning point in her life, and she might quit singing altogether. Nagi tells him to leave it to her, but Keiki doesn't back out. Misono tells Keiki she used to sing for fun when she was a kid, but that her ambition has caused her to lose a dear friend, and singing has never felt the same for her ever since, that she doesn't even know why she sings anymore. Keiki asks her why she doesn't quite, then, if it causes her to hurt herself, it's not worth it. He tells her it won't change the way the library club perceives her. Later, Shirasaki tells the group they will call the festival they'll organize, Mino Fest. Nagi tells Keikiai if he keeps this up, Misono will end being a standard student when she's capable of being an international success through her singing. However, Nanai appears and tells Keikiai he has passed the second test, and that he can be a shepherd now, if he likes. Immediately, they are transported to the magic library, and Nanai says it is okay for him to take on Misono's fate as his friend. When Keikiai asks why Kodachi is so hasty with her decisions, Nanai tells him with her current state of mind and tightened emotions, she can't be a sheepherd. Keikiai asks him if people will keep forgetting her. So, Nanai gives him Kodachi's Book of Future. Keikiai reads Kodachi's book and glimpses into her history, stumbling upon a single memory where she affectionately refers to him as Big Brother Kyotaro. He's taken aback by the revelation that she's his half-sister. Before he can process it all, Kodachi enters, and he awkwardly addresses her as Nagi, catching her off guard. Spotting her book, she inquires if he's read it, to which he hesitantly mumbles a confirmation, confirming her suspicions. Kodachi grins and playfully scolds him for taking so long to remember her before affectionately calling him Big Brother Kyotaro. He's left utterly speechless by this revelation. The library club is distributing flyers as Mochizuki and her vice president observe the progress, with the vice president showing visible anger towards Keikiai. Later that night, Keikiai reflects on his connection with Kodachi as he answers the doorbell. Kodachi arrives with boxes and announces she's moving in as siblings. Keikiai, bewildered, questions her, but she insists they live together as brother and sister, addressing him as Big Brother Kyotaro. They share a meal, and Keikiai ponders this new situation, asking Kodachi why he couldn't remember her if their sibling relationship is true. His childhood memories resurface, recalling that before his father disappeared, he was married to Kodachi's mother. Keikiai remembers Kodachi being somewhat secluded and defended her from hostile servants. Kodachi appreciates his care. Keikiai answers the doorbell, concealing Kodachi's belongings, and encounters Shirasaki, who nervously asks him to be her boyfriend, surprising him. Shirasaki departs proudly, and in Keikiai's room, he blushes at her request. The next day, Shirasaki explains that she asked Keikiai to pose as her boyfriend because her sister, Sayori, believes it to be true. Sayori expresses gratitude for Keikiai looking after her sister, listing Shirasaki's good qualities. Shirasaki offers to cook dinner at Keikiai's house as thanks, but Keikiai rushes home to hide Kodachi and her belongings on the veranda before she arrives. He apologizes to Kodachi as Shirasaki begins cooking. Kodachi's message appears on Shirasaki's phone, leaving Keikiai stunned. The next day, Shirasaki discusses Minafest plans with the library club, wanting it to stand out. Later, Keikiai and Kodachi relax until the doorbell rings. Kodachi, wanting to tease Keikiai, answers it, and they meet Sayori and Shirasaki. Keikiai nervously explains their sibling relationship, but Kodachi's remarks worsen the situation. Shirasaki laughs in disbelief, and Sayori assures Keikiai that her sister's feelings for him are genuine. Sayori thanks Keikiai for supporting Shirasaki, and Kodachi uses a book to teleport Sayori back to the hospital when she falls ill. At the hospital, Shirasaki discusses her amazement at the book's abilities with Keikiai. Keikiai finally reveals he's a shepherd in training and can foresee the future. Shirasaki remembers their previous encounter when he saved her. They part ways, and Shirasaki tearfully admits her feelings for him, shocking Keikiai. The next day, Keikiai and Shirasaki awkwardly meet on their way to the library club, both blushing heavily. Misono and Suzuki inform them of a new group claiming to be the real library club, restarting their club. The library club is still trying to become an official club, but Aoi's meddling stands in the way. Aoi shows them a message she received from the shepherd, insinuating that she works with him, which further irritates the group. Keikiai tells everyone what they lost was just a room, that they still have each other and they will do amazing at Minafest. Tamamo tells them they will continue the happy project no matter what. To complicate matters even more, the student council arranges a symposium with famous alumni at the same time and date as the Minafest. And immediately, Misono receives requests for returning tickets for the Minafest. At that moment, Keikiai has a vision of Shirasaki lying on the ground on a pool of her blood. Keikiai is terrified and alarmed by this premonition. He connects Minafest to something terrible that would happen to Shirasaki but can't tell anyone for the risk of Minafest being cancelled altogether. Later at home, Keikiai tells Kodachi he's considering becoming a shepherd for Shirasaki's sake, but Kodachi isn't pleased with this, as it means everyone will forget about him. Kodachi says only one of them could become a shepherd, and that's why she tried to sabotage his attempts. She tells him she thought that if he could be with one of the girls from the library club, he could have a happy life. In the magic library, Keikiai tells Nanai he wants to become a shepherd, and so, Nanai erases Keikiai's book. He internally says, "Goodbye," to everyone he cares about. In the meantime, Shirasaki is talking about Keikiai's birthday coming up, with Tamamo, when both of them momentarily forget about him. However, Shirasaki refuses to forget about Keikiai, and realizes he will disappear, becoming the shepherd. She runs out to Keikiai's house and is revealed to find him there. She holds her hand and tells him she can't remember the things they talked about from time to time. She asks if he really did it, become a shepherd, but doesn't believe him when he lies about it. She gives him a kiss, a much anticipated one at this point, and sheds a single tear, as Keikiai wraps his arms around her. Keikiai then tells her how this is good for him, but Shirasaki begs him to take her with him. She tells her the conditions for becoming a shepherd, namely, that everyone will forget about her. Unable to forgive him for leaving her and becoming a shepherd, Shirasaki says she hates Keikiai as a shepherd. But, Keikiai is determined to save Shirasaki from the impending doom waiting for her. On his way to school, Suzuki calls Keikiai, sounding alarmed and terrified. So Keikiai runs into the room, concerned, only to find a seductive Misono waiting for him. As she throws him onto the bed, Suzuki also appears, dressed seductively. The two tell him they need to punish him and advances on him, all hot and steamy. But Keikiai puts an end to the madness by opening the curtains, and Misono tells him Suzuki said they needed to use their attractiveness to stop a man, something she learned from the internet. He then receives a call from Tamamo, who later shows him a news saying he sold his body to the student council to get included and get them to authorize Minafest festival. The group is pissed off at Keikiai, and asks Shirasaki to say something. Keikiai explains this was all a misunderstanding, and Suzuki says all they need to do is trust each other. Later, Misono finds Keikiai up on the roof, and asks him to let her sing at Minafest, as she's decided she wants to start singing again. She gives Keikiai an affectionate kiss on the forehead and runs along, giggling. The news of the song Princess performing at Minafest turns the tides in favor of the library club, who are now getting more attention for their show thanks to Misono. However, Aoi is also determined to make things harder for them. Back at home, Keikiai is frustrated with his failure to change Shirasaki's horrible fate, as he's tried everything and yet still, the future looks unchanged for her. The day of the festival, Keikiai and the library club are practicing the lines from the play. The show starts, with a huge crowd gathered on the seats. The student council's symposium, however, looks like a movie theater during the end credits, with barely a handful of audience, as they all left for the Minif's show instead. As Suzuki peeks through the curtain from the backstage at the crowd, Keikiai asks what she's doing. She tells him she's really glad her script has finally been recognized and that the audience looks like they're having fun. When Misono asks Keikiai to give her a reward after the show, Suzuki asks for the same thing, as both girls cling to Keikiai's arms. Right then, Tamamo shows up and scorns that this is not the time to mess around. She orders the girls to warm up and get ready. It is now her turn to butter up Keikiai, as she asks what she could do to make him happy. This sight upsets Misono and Suzuki, as well as Shirasaki, who happens to pass by as Tamamo makes her move on Keikiai. Later on, Shirasaki is asked to go find Kaki to tell him to get ready. In the meantime, we see Aoi unscrewing the bolts from a platform that's been lifted high, trying to sabotage the show, but Keikiai witnesses this. As Aoi is about to escape, Kodachi stops her as they both collapse on top of each other. Keikiai grabs Aoi's foot. Meanwhile, Shirasaki sees what's happening above, seconds before the platforms start falling, right on top of her, just as Keikiai's vision predicted. Seeing this, Keikiai realizes he has no choice but to become the shepherd and evaporate the platform, transporting all of them to stage. Aoi, unaware of the audience watching her, confesses to her sabotage attempt and tells everyone she did what she did to lead the Shiomi Academy to the best future possible. As she lifts her head and sees the audience, she is stunned and terrified, also because Mochizuki was also there. Later, up on the roof, Nanai asks them how they could be so indiscreet while doing a shepherd's duty. Keikiai tells him that's what he had to do so save Shirasaki, and that this is the way he believes shepherds should operate. Wanting to erase them from everyone's memory, Nanai says they will have to make Kodachi a shepherd as well. Keikiai, however, has failed at being a shepherd, as Nanai tells him. But, since his book has already been erased, he will become a person that will be forgotten by everyone. Meanwhile, it is the library club's time to perform, but Keikiai is nowhere to be found, adding to the club's growing anxiety. Shirasaki is invited to the stage as the founder of Happy Projects, and she gives an inspirational speech about trying to make the world a better place by being kind and selfless people, referring to Keiki's sacrifice. After her speech, it is time for Misono to sing. Backstage, Keiki tells Shirasaki he was fired from the job of being a shepherd, and that he doesn't have a book anymore. But Shirasaki assures him that no matter what, she would never forget him. She jumps into his arms and tells him they will be together forever, that she doesn't want him to ever leave. Keiki holds her tight, as the ticket to the magic library flies away from him forever. Meanwhile, Kodachi is becoming a shepherd, as she always wanted. Later, Keiki is surprised to find Kodachi still in his apartment, and she tells him she became the shepherd responsible for Shiomi Academy. As he looks out the window, he sees all of his friends, waiting to be let in. Despite everything, everyone gets their happy ending, and Keiki is finally able to be with Shirasaki and his friends without fear of being separated or forgotten. Fellow weebs, if you enjoyed the recap, subscribe and turn on notifications for more hilarious videos. Also, if you would like to buy some cool anime keychains, then go ahead and check my description below.